Now I'm kind of worried though about Sheena. If she didn't know she had sex with me, how far did she go with her dad or something? Right? And when was she with him? Right? And things like that. She didn't tell me all the detail. Right? Right? Because I had been with a girlfriend who had a similar experience. Right? Her dad was trying to have sex with her before she turned 16 too. Right? But from what I heard, he was only rubbing it on the outside. He didn't go inside. Right? Well, did your dad go inside too? I mean, I don't know, right? You're the one who acted like you didn't realize we could do oral and sex, and that you needed to tell me that before we had the sex, right? And that it was wrong of me to assume that when you didn't really get to know me that well, or ask me my church history, which I had to tell you more in the letters anyway. I know. That's also why, because I did know we had sex, I didn't just throw you away like you were a piece of meat, which is what you were doing in my mind, right? With me, right? Sheena, right? I always thought if you have sex with someone, whether you knew it or not, usually the person knows, though, right? They can tell too, right? And then you do them right, right? You're not wrong, right? See, I was also taught you ask them to marry you in a romantic fashion, right? So since we're both in the Mediterranean, I proposed marriage in Jerusalem just in case, right? Now that was to show you I wanted to marry you and not just fuck you and get you pregnant and leave you, or even if I didn't get you pregnant, right? That the sex was in love and not about. But then you rejected me too. So what else can I do, right? You contacted your command. You embarrassed me and you about the sex, right? And you're lying to them about what the real issue was, right? Because you consented to. You know it, right? So you would have to explain what happened. Well, we went off on the date, right? Well, what happened? I thought he was going to perform oral sex with me, so I let him pull my panties down, but he had sex with me instead, right? Which you did not say I couldn't do both, which I told you I normally do both, right? Or didn't you understand our conversation the day before what I was talking about when I said I have done been with 5 women, right? And still am unmarried, right? Just like the woman at the well, she had married 5 men, right? Right? And the 6th one was her lover, but they weren't married yet, right? And again, right? People in the church want to condemn that when it's in the Bible itself. That's this hypocrisy. The church can be hypocritical. Mm-hmm. More so than the people in it, right? Because the people in it are the hypocrites sometimes, right? They don't get, not everybody has a perfect life. Some people have to deal with something like that, right? And yet, Jesus was the 7th man she was with. More than likely, yeah. That's another reason he would forgive the woman caught in that adultery, which could have been his wife, right? What's going on there? Well, he married a woman, maybe, right? It could have to do with the wedding in Canaan, and he does not live in Canaan. Right? He had his own house, his own abode, right? Apart from Canaan in a different area. Mm-hmm. I don't even think they showed where he lived on the map, right? But it was not Canaan, right? So if you arrange a marriage for your son, not only would your son come, you would go there, the disciples too, right? Durr. You would all be invited to the wedding, including Jesus himself, because he's the one to get married, right? And he's the bridegroom, right? The bridegroom is the one that has the bride on the wedding day. But if the bridegroom doesn't have the bride, the friends of the bridegroom, if she was with 7 men too, right? We're trying to steal her from him, right? You see what I mean? But he met other women, right? Like the woman at the well, mm-hmm, who was willing to be with him, right? Without all the hoopla of marriage or, right? Mm-hmm. So you understand, right? We've been lied to for 2,000 years. Well, since Constantine took over anyway, right? Partially with Peter, even, right? Well, he's hoping is you'll read both the old and new and figure it out somehow, I guess. I don't know, right? And John says, well, then you're tempting people that they're worthy of the truth or not, right? And might make people feel unworthy of it, even, right? John's saying something to somebody in the book of Revelations as well. That's why in the opening chapters, the first person he describes is the body of Jesus, right? Yeah, it's an odd description, right? The hair and head are white as snow, right? All right, what is he, albino then? Right? The body is his brass, right? He has on paps with a white garment girt about the chest, right? Which were feminine chests, right? With a feminine chest, not a masculine. Now, in the Gospels, he says Stethos, right? But on the cross, he saw him naked and ashamed, right? The Romans were shaming him for believing he was the King of Israel and the Messiah, right? But the Jews delivered him over because they did not want to receive him as the Messiah. Perhaps again, because there's one word that they were really talking about. Yeah. And John's the only male who could witness them. Females couldn't even witness to something like that. At that time, right? So he's the only one who can say something about it, and he said it before he died, right? On Patmos, right? Now, if you thought they were Stethos, though, and you correct yourself in Revelation and call them Mastoids, right? And what he's doing there is in the Hebrew Greek translation called the Septuagint, there's more than one way to spell the word female breast, right? One of them is Mostoi. The other one is Mastous, right? And the correct way is Matos, right? Mastos, right? Mastos, right? Sorry, you have to. But this word does not mean male breast, right? And if he morphed into two other people, there's three in his trinity. Yeah. But if you have female breasts and male, you're both, right? Therefore, the three forms are androgynous, male and female, fully. And then the two from the one. Except all three were talking, right? Jesus, the two, the male and female, Jesus, right? There's still Jesus now, right? All three. And that's what you're not taught to understand. The church blew it there. Right. They don't understand what it means, right? Because they were lied to by Constantine about it, right? Now, the disciples, obviously according to the Gnostic Gospels, were explaining it in some form, right? But there's still superstition in the church, right? Because of the law of Moses, right? Peter was acting again oddly towards his daughter in that she was injured and paralyzed, right? Well, the story went that a Roman soldier had fallen in love with her and wanted to marry her, and she him. But Peter refused, right? Because back then he had the power to let his daughter marry or not, right? And instead of marrying him, she paralyzed her. But does that sound like a good thing to do to your daughter? No, actually, it don't. It sounds like a condemning thing if they're in love, right? It sounds like Peter's taking over for his daughter's decision in who she marries, right? And they talk of Jesus and Mary kissing often, right? Well, you can't kiss a woman unless she's your wife anyway, right? Anywhere on her body, right? Unless you're seducing her and she's unbetrothed, right? Either way, if you're doing that, you're trying to what? Have sex with her or marry her. Right. But you got to read it and then reconnect it back to the Bible because Constantine disconnected it and teaches something else, right? Uh-oh. You're not supposed to do that either. That's a false doctrine, right? If you're teaching opposite doctrine as what they originally taught, that's a false doctrine, right? Don't matter who you are, right? It's a heresy. It's a heresy. Now, what the Catholics are doing, though, is they're calling what we're teaching, the Gnostic Gospels, the heresy, and not what they're teaching, the heresy, when they were both a little heretic, right? Because neither one told you the whole truth, right? See, that's the problem there, too. Both were dealing with different issues they were dealing with after the death of the disciples. This was during the 2nd and 3rd century as well, right? The 1st century, the disciples were still alive, at least until the end of the millennia, right? I mean, the century, right? The 1st century. Now, they could be alive till the end of the millennia, in both millenniums, right? Because there be some here who shall not taste of death till all is fulfilled, right? Well, the key ones would be the disciples, don't you think? Not the unbelieving Romans, though there could be a few Roman soldiers if they had direct contact with Jesus, the tree of life, right? So again, the problem becomes, what's going on, right? We don't know anymore. We got to figure it out for ourselves, right? Uh-huh. Right. There you go.